is. I'm in Los Angeles, and I've been in LA news for 35 years, which is scary to think about. I know, but I can give you some perspective on what's happening here and how the state of California is the focus of so much anger on the part of the President of the United States. He's getting the battle he wants with California. In Gavin Newsom, we'll share some of the remarks of Gavin Newsom with you in a moment. And the winning political issue for Donald Trump is immigration, and he can make California the poster child for his immigration policy. He can get a fight with a high-end Democrat, Gavin Newsom, and he can stir the pot all at the same time. He can create a crisis in California with the heavy-handed ICE raids at Home Depot, at restaurants, in the fashion district. I mean, these people aren't people with criminal records, okay? But he gets all of that ripple effect, the community anxious, angry, and you get the pushback, and now you have the situation in Los Angeles, which we'll talk about, because it is truly a gateway to what is going to happen and can very easily happen elsewhere in the country. And already you're seeing protests against ICE policies in places like Texas. So you'll have to tell me, I mean, the border states are going to be most affected. There are already significant populations of Latinos there, and Latinos, honestly, have been most targeted in all of this. That's why they're going to those places I just mentioned. Can't see the chat. I'll tell you that even in Peru, they're like, what the F, says Spencer. Yeah. There was, that's right, I saw this. Yeah, Concord, which is in the Bay Area. They had ICE agents come to Concord yesterday. Concord, California. It's in it's like east of San Francisco, but just east of San Francisco. It's considered like a suburb of San Francisco. And so you see that the ICE policies and strategies are being employed heavy-handedly, I'd suggest, in California first, and then it will spread out across the country. And there's a tremendous amount of money that's been allocated to ICE, as you in the new budget. There is $27 billion that's been allocated toward enforcement and deportations. $27 billion. That'll include 10,000 new U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents. And Trump's private prison donors will love this. The bill includes $45 billion to construct new migrant detention centers. That's a 364% increase over last year.
I thought we were just going to send them all to Gitmo.
And then there is that. There is the very real effort to retool Gitmo, to retool Guantanamo, this place where the worst of the worst were housed, those involved in 9/11, those thought to be related to Al-Qaeda, to Osama bin Laden. I mean, Guantanamo became synonymous with American torture and lock them up and throw away the key, right? And now the Trump team plans to send thousands of migrants to Guantanamo starting as soon as this week. The idea is that you dramatically ramp up your anti-immigration efforts, on this administration very much doing that. And 9,000 people are being vetted for transfer to Guantanamo Bay, to the prison there.
Which is supposed to be a notorious place, that there's no access to medical care there. The treatment is not supposed to be good. And these are what did they do wrong?
Well, they were at Home Depot waiting for work, Kim.
They overstayed their welcome. They didn't have papers.
There are 500 migrants who've been held for short periods already at Guantanamo. And that was the beginning, I think. This is why I think it's important to watch how things germinate, watch how things start. That's when I talk about LA. I think it's a far more obvious example. A lot of the dance that's being done in LA right now is a rehearsal for the dance that's going to be done in Texas, in New Mexico, in Arizona, et cetera, and across the country on the East Coast as well. I'm just mentioning the West because I think that's where it's really starting in earnest. But again, so there were 500 migrants held for short periods at the base since February. And the idea is that this Guantanamo Bay's prison will hold as many as 30,000 migrants. And the transfers could start as soon as today. The official reason for the transfers is to free up bed space at detention facilities on domestic American soil. But the use of what Kim, I think, accurately describes as a notorious facility, which has really housed terrorism suspects all these years, again sends another signal. It's a signal aimed at deterring illegal immigration to the U.S. A lot of this is messaging. So we'll see if this plan and strategy is implemented in any big way, but I mentioned to you the budgeting of the private prisons. I mean, they are scooping up a lot of people, but the reality is that they haven't scooped up the people they promised to scoop up. They've scooped up those who are really no threat to society, in fact, are just part of the underground economy that fuels America, that fuels the construction business, the restaurant business, the healthcare industry, the sanitation world. I mean, these are, I'm leaving out slaughterhouses and the agricultural fields. I mean, there's so many parts of the American economy and the California economy that will be critically affected by this and are critically affected even by the scare. But again, it's a winning political message that's implicit, which is I'm handling immigration, I'm handling it tough. That's a winning political issue for Trump and message for Trump. And as I say, it has these additional add-ons where he's taking on the enemy, California, the libs, Gavin Newsom, head lib. So, Albert, if you would please queue up a couple of things, and then I'll bring on Brother Rothman here in just a few minutes. What's happening in California is, as I say, the fight that Trump wants. It's around an issue that's a political winner for him, immigration, and it's against the high-profile libs that he wants to take on. You know, the libs who can't run California, can't run LA, can't run San Francisco. So the red-blue and then the actual granular fact that it's Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and these sorts of people involved only is something that delights Trump. So he comes in heavy with ICE agents and he begins this process of making California an example. Here is the California governor, Gavin Newsom, who addressed the state last night.
What's happening right now is very different than anything we've seen before. On Saturday morning, when federal agents jumped out of an unmarked van near a Home Depot parking lot, they began grabbing people, a deliberate targeting of a heavily Latino suburb. A similar scene played out when a clothing company was raided downtown. In other actions, a U.S. citizen, 9 months pregnant, was arrested. A 4-year-old girl taken. Families separated. Friends quite literally disappearing. In response, everyday Angelenos came out to exercise their constitutional right to free speech and assembly, to protest their government's actions. In turn, the state of California and the city and county of Los Angeles sent our police officers to help keep the peace. And with some exceptions, they were successful. Like many states, California is no stranger to this sort of unrest. We manage it regularly and with our own law enforcement. But this, again, was different. What then ensued was the use of tear gas, flashbang grenades, rubber bullets, federal agents detaining people and undermining their due process rights. Donald Trump, without consulting California law enforcement leaders, commandeered 2,000 of our state's National Guard members to deploy on our streets, illegally and for no reason. This brazen abuse of power by a sitting president inflamed a combustible situation, putting our people, our officers, and even our National Guard at risk. That's when the downward spiral began. He doubled down on his dangerous National Guard deployment by fanning the flames even harder. And the president, he did it on purpose. As the news spread throughout LA, anxiety for family and friends ramped up. Protests started again. By night, several dozen lawbreakers became violent and destructive. They vandalized property. They tried to assault police officers. Many of you have seen the video clips of cars burning on cable news. If you incite violence, I want to be clear about this. If you incite violence or destroy our communities, you're going to be held to account. That kind of criminal behavior will not be tolerated. Full stop. Already more than 220 people have been arrested, and we're reviewing tapes to build additional cases, and people will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Again, thanks to our law enforcement officers and the majority of Angelenos who protested peacefully, the situation was winding down and was concentrated in just a few square blocks downtown. But that's not what Donald Trump wanted. He again chose escalation. He chose more force. He chose theatrics over public safety. He federalized another 2,000 Guard members. He deployed more than 700 active U.S. Marines. These are the men and women trained for foreign combat, not domestic law enforcement. We honor their service. We honor their bravery. But we do not want our streets militarized by our own armed forces, not in LA, not in California, not anywhere. We're seeing unmarked cars in school parking lots, kids afraid of attending their own graduation. Trump is pulling a military dragnet all across Los Angeles, well beyond his stated intent to just go after violent and serious criminals. His agents are arresting dishwashers, gardeners, day laborers, and seamstresses. That's just weakness masquerading as strength. Donald Trump's government isn't protecting our communities. They're traumatizing our communities. And that seems to be the entire point. California will keep fighting. We'll keep fighting on behalf of our people, all of our people, including in the courts. Just yesterday, we filed a legal challenge to Donald Trump's reckless deployment of American troops to a major American city. Today, we sought an emergency court order to stop the use of the American military to engage in law enforcement activities across Los Angeles. If some of us could be snatched off the streets without a warrant, based only on suspicion or skin color, then none of us are safe. Authoritarian regimes begin by targeting people who are least able to defend themselves, but they do not stop there. Trump and his loyalists, they thrive.
You get the idea. And look, I'm not a huge Gavin Newsom fan, although I think there are a lot of things about Gavin Newsom that are really attractive, and I will leave those for another time. I agree with him on what's happened here, although I would say that and this is just a little aside, if I can, again, step out of the movie for just a second. I'm pretty tough on law and order, and I feel as though peaceful protesters were really committed to what was generally peaceful protest. But there were agitators in there. I don't even know that they were part of the protest. I mean, there seems to be a lot of reporting that would suggest that they weren't part of the protest. They might have been paid agitators. They might have been anarchists. I don't know that it's informed by any kind of political philosophy. I think a lot of these people just go in. They love mayhem. They love throwing stuff at the cops. They don't like the cops anyway. They don't feel connected to society in any way. They don't feel like they have a stake in their city. And so you end up with these horrifying scenes of cinder blocks being thrown, and police cars being vandalized, and Waymos being set ablaze, along with police cars and even news vans. Those people have to be dealt with incredibly harshly, in my view. And I also feel that the governor in those comments, and then I'll get back to the main, but I do want to make this clear, because I really part company with allowing in any way the kind of looting, any sort of loose grip on protesting that becomes embedded with those who are looting, I'll include tagging. I include all of this stuff. I arrest all those people, looters, taggers, stone throwers, all of them. If you spit at cops, again, you may take away my lib credentials, but this really, as a citizen of the United States and a taxpayer in Los Angeles, I don't want you trashing a business down there. I don't want you trashing the city. And as I said, they're not trashing the city. It's a 4-block radius, but they are trashing areas down there, and there was looting. And as I say, I want real crackdown on that. Why do business owners have to deal with this repeatedly? If I'm a business owner in downtown LA, why do I have to factor in that, oh yeah, every time there's a protest, the looters are going to get to my store, they're going to break the window, they're going to steal everything from jewelry to iPhones. It's BS. If you want businesses to open up in these areas that need businesses to open up, you need to deal with looters, taggers, stone throwers, flamethrowers, those who arsonists. You need to deal with them harshly. So I part company with some in charge who I think have sort of been a little looser on allowing protests to get a little over the edge. Now let me get back to the movie. But the idea somehow that you needed the President of the United States to Bigfoot the governor and local officials, that's just ludicrous. That is obviously an effort to make this a political battle. It served no useful end. And could Newsom have just ordered the California National Guard to ignore the order from Trump? Comes Randy. I don't think so.
I mean, Trump federalized the National Guard, and that means they report to Trump instead of Newsom at that point.
Yeah. But as Vicky says, Mark, yes, the criminals are bad, but let's focus on the fact that we're losing our democracy. I do think that's the main point. You cannot detain these people without due process. You cannot just scoop people up randomly the way they're being scooped up. In large measure, we see illegal immigration pursued in a less than legal way. There may be illegality on both sides. What's the next video you have for me before I get to Brother Rothman? This is Donald Trump being asked about the very thing that was commented on in the chat, which is associated with the governor of California being spoken with prior to this nationalizing of the Guard, the deployment of the Guard by the President of the United States over the protestations, over the resistance of the governor of California and the mayor of Los Angeles. Did he talk to Governor Newsom ahead of time? Here's what he said.
Hey, Mr. President, when is the last time you spoke with Governor Newsom?
A day ago. Called him up to tell him, got to do a better job. He's doing a bad job, causing a lot of death and a lot of potential death. If we didn't send out the National Guard, and last time we gave him a little additional help, you would have, Los Angeles would be burning right now. Los Angeles would be not a lot different than what you saw take place in California and Los Angeles just a little while ago. And, you got to remember, we have the Olympics coming. And we don't want people looking at Los Angeles like it would have been. It would have been bad. Last night, they had total control. If we didn't have the military in there, the National Guard, and then we also sent in some Marines, we had some bad people. We have people, they look in your face and they spit right in your face. They're animals. And these are paid insurrectionists. These are paid troublemakers. They're agitators. They're paid. Do you think somebody walks up to a curb and starts hammering pieces out, has all the equipment necessary, and starts handing it out to people to use as a weapon? These are paid insurrectionists or agitators or troublemakers. You can call it whatever you want. And we ended it, and we have in custody some very bad people. Some very bad people.
Mr. President.
Did you see the guy throwing the rocks at the police cars as they went by and crushing their windows and endangering our police? We're not going to let that happen, yeah.
Pardon me, Mr. President, on those Marines, Governor Newsom has described them as political pawns.
I'm curious for your reaction to that and what you see as the Marines' role and what are their rules of engagement?
All I want is safety. I just want a safe area. Los Angeles was under siege until we got there. The police were unable to handle it. You could speak to the chief. He said it on television 3 nights ago. He said, this is more than we can handle. They said that. And the LA police, I know a lot of the police in LA, they're great people, but they're given instructions not to do this, not to do that. But in this case, they were trying their best. They were not able to handle it. It was out of control. When we got there, and you have to remember, I've been here before, and I went right by every rule, and I waited for governors to say, send in the National Guard. They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it, and they just wouldn't do it. It kept going on and on, got worse and worse. And in Minneapolis, that city was burning down. It was 7 days, and I said, I don't care. The governor, who's a governor that just happened to be running for vice president, you talk about an incompetent governor. He's an incompetent person. That he was picked. Well, I was actually very happy he was picked for other reasons. But this guy wouldn't call the National Guard. And we ultimately just sent in the National Guard. We stopped it. But that was after 7 days. And I said to myself, if that stuff happens again, we've got to make faster decisions because they don't want to do it. The radical left, it's usually radical left, and it's usually governors that are Democrat, and they don't want to call them in. They don't want to save lives. They don't want to save property. They don't want to call them in. I don't know what it is. We sent them in, not early, we sent them in late as far as I'm concerned. But big problems, as you know, 3 nights ago, big problems were ensuing. If we didn't send in the National Guard quickly, right now, Los Angeles would be burning to the ground.
Yeah, there really is no evidence that is at all true. Most of what he said, he's kind of spun up. I've just told you that I thought that the way in which looters are being handled and crowd is being handled, and again, the crowd and the looters, they're really, I think, generally speaking, are distinctly different. There are those who are out for the joyride of mayhem, and then there are those largely, I mean, 99% of the crowd is just marching peacefully. Unfortunately, the 1% can create a lot of issues and can create a lot of real disturbing images. We talked about them yesterday. So Trump gets a lot of political bang off of the scenes in Los Angeles now. But the constitutionality, the legality of all of this has to be part of the conversation, because the minute you permit, for whatever reason, the president to Bigfoot the governor and the mayor, you have opened the door to a kind of autocracy that can be reasonably referenced in all of this. When we hear about states' rights, when the Republicans are talking about freedom, we played you the Kristi Noem conversation where she talks about states' rights. She was talking about it with Sean Hannity. Played that yesterday. But apparently it's perfectly cool when you're going after the libs to Bigfoot them from the White House the way he did. This is Tom Homan on NBC Nightly News. Go ahead.
From what you've seen, from what you've heard in Los Angeles, could you conduct ICE raids right now without the help of the National Guard and the Marines?
We can conduct ICE raids, but it's about the threats and the violence right now. I mean, this job's already dangerous. I've done this for a long time. I mean, our ICE officers have been attacked. It's like we're a third world nation where people think it's okay to threaten the life and safety of federal law enforcement officers and their families.
I want to put up a tweet for you. This is what Governor Newsom put on X, right? He put the photos you see there of Marines sleeping on top of each other. This is what he wrote in that post. You sent your troops here without fuel, food, water, or a place to sleep. Here they are being forced to sleep on the floor, piled on top of one another. What do you say to that, Mr. Homan?
I'd say I ought to take a few moments, go downtown LA and look at the damage that's been done by these radical protesters. I mean, President Trump's saving his city. President Trump's doing what he should have done. Gavin Newsom could have responded right away. And everybody wants to put the blame on President Trump and the National Guard. You know the blame starts? It starts with the Biden administration with over 10 million illegal aliens across this border. We're out there trying to respond to the chaos he created.
Yeah, the chaos in L.A. You know, really, I'll tell you, last week, I just couldn't get over the chaos. Yeah, the people selling fruit on the street corners once in a while. I mean, that's chaotic. This guy, Pedro, that I know, he does a little cooking stand, makes tacos down at the corner about a mile from where I live. It's chaotic. It's utter chaos. chaos in Los Angeles? Please. This is a bald-faced lie. Or is it bold-faced lie? What is it, Kim? Is it bold or bald? Let's bring on Rothman. What do you think it is?
Bald.
It's bald-faced lie? Okay. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.